Yes, there's peaceful protests, but we're allowed to do that in this country.
Peaceful?
Yes, sir.
Fuck you.
I was in Portland yesterday and had the chance to visit with the governor of Oregon and also the mayor. They're in town and they are absolutely covering up the terrorism that is hitting their streets.
Coke cans being thrown from the crowd. Cans, now they're dispersing the crowd. They're throwing out flashbangs.
This is an aggressive approach trying to inflame a situation that has otherwise been peaceful. As far as tactics and our processes,
Portland is burning to the ground. It's insurrectionists all over the place. It's Antifa. And yet the politicians who are petrified. Look, the politicians are afraid for their lives.
We are back in Portland. Portland didn't just lose control, they gave it away. They gift wrapped it, handed it over, and now have the nerve to pretend that it is someone else's fault. You have Antifa throwing out smoke bombs and getting into fights. ICE is holding the line, and the Portland's politicians, they're holding press conferences like this is some kind of performative place.
we see Federal Protective Service that's really trying to inflame the situation, not put it down, and certainly not just protect property. A couple of things. We saw unjustified uses of force. We saw shoving peaceful veterans and elderly people to the ground.
You got the rioters fighting ICE. ICE is fighting the rioters, and the mayor's fighting gravity, trying to spin this mess as someone else's problem.
The conduct of federal law enforcement officials at the ICE facility. My question for you would be the conduct of some of the protesters we've seen down there. We've seen multiple protesters blocking the driveway of the ICE facility, trying to prevent them from doing their job, as well as screaming in the faces of law enforcement officials. What's your message to those protesters who are engaged in that behavior?
Well, first and foremost, Portland is a peaceful city. We advocate and we want peace and calm. We don't certainly want anything to escalate this at this time.
It sounds very familiar to what's going on in Chicago. So you have Kristi Noem showing up and calling them out right to their faces, saying they're lying, saying that they're hiding the truth.
I was in Portland yesterday and had the chance to visit with the governor of Oregon and also the mayor. They're in town and they are absolutely covering up the terrorism that is hitting their streets. While you talked about some of the stories of our ICE agents, our Border Patrol agents, how they have been attacked, how they have been shot at, injured, the damage that they've done, these leaders in these local cities, along with Pritzker and Johnson, ignore what's going on, or, sir, they're helping Antifa cover it up.
Protesters rolling out a replica guillotine in front of the ICE facility in Portland. Now, that designation of Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization does declare Antifa as an anarchist enterprise that explicitly calls for the overthrow of the United States government.
You see what's happening in Portland. This is like nobody's ever seen anything like it every night, and this has gone on for years. They just burned the place down. These are professional agitators.
On Tuesday, Antifa put out this flyer obtained by News Nation calling for activists to gather at the Eugene Federal Building. We are everywhere. Squad up, make travel plans, bring PPE, and your unhinged Portland energy. Now, Antifa targeting federal and ICE buildings.
Here's the dirty secret that no one wants to talk about out loud, that Portland's leaders, they seem like they're benefiting from this. Every riot is a headline. Every confrontation is a chance to play hero on camera and to call out Trump. Very similar to what's going on in Chicago. Chaos isn't hurting their careers, it's feeding them. And it just shows that maybe this is lawless by design. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. Hannibal is hungry here. We are going very well with the channel. 125,000 subscribers right now. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. You do not want to miss any of this content. It is going crazy the last couple of weeks. But let's get back to it. This situation didn't come out of nowhere. Portland has been spending years treating law enforcement like a bad word. They built a city that prides itself on being a sanctuary, but forgot sanctuaries only work if someone is actually keeping things safe. The back and forth between ICE and these rioters has been going on since June. So this is not the first time this has happened. And you've seen ICE clashes in Chicago as well. It's the same anti-federal stance, same protesters out there in the street streets and the same kind of leadership that would rather posture than really protect the people there. Chicago's leadership is facing pressure to cooperate with ICE, despite the low approval ratings for the mayor, because he is allowing the violence to continue to flare up. So when ICE shows up to enforce federal law, the city acts like they're the villains. They don't back down from the officers. They don't back down from the feds. Hell, they don't even back down from their own residents.
The Democratic attorneys general across this country, as we work together to hold the line, what is right now becoming this normalization of the United States military in our cities.
But I did have a meeting this week with Mayor Johnson, my counterpart in Chicago, just to compare notes. And he's been experiencing this heightened sense of awareness for the last couple of months, where this has been relatively new for us. But it's disheartening to see our cities being used as military targets when we should be focusing on delivering service to our constituents as opposed to readying our communities.
And you see all of this kind of chaos and crazy confusion. And behind all that posturing, it seems like they know exactly what they're doing. They get the national attention, they get the donations, the headlines, and the political clout by being the city that stands up to the feds, that stand up to fight Trump. It's a performance, and the rest of the country is just stuck watching this show. This is how you get a city where chaos isn't a surprise. It seems like it's a strategy, especially for the people who are out there protesting. And I'm talking about the people who are trying to fight ICE, fight officers, to truly protest, not to go back and forth physically with officers.
You said you increased patrols as a result of your conversations with Noem. Why not do that earlier? Could that have prevented some of this focus on Portland that we're having?
Well, there's a lot of what ifs that we could do. You know, that's kind of the nature of police work.
Portland built this mess, and now they act shocked because things are burning down. But let's talk about Antifa. Antifa, what does it stand for? Anti-fascist. Sounds very noble, but here's the thing. It's not a charity. It's not a choir. It's a movement built to fight.
Follow God's law. Yeah. You like my shirt, you ugly prick? God's law. There's laws here for a reason. God's law is wrong. Your law is coming. I'm not giving you consent to film me right now.
It's a public street, pal. It's a...
Back up. Back up.
Portland has one of the oldest chapters in the country, Rose City Antifa, been around since 2007, and they've turned the city into their own personal playground. So when Donald Trump labels Antifa as a terrorist organization, instead of Portland's leadership, like the mayor, backing public safety, trying to cool it down a little bit, try to lower the temperature of the situation, no, they don't do any of that. Then you have people out there dressing up in ballooned outfits, dancing around and prancing around. And, some people believe that they're not there to lower the temperature or make things a more positive environment, but they believe that this is Antifa intentionally trying to make it seem like they're not the aggressive ones. They're just trying to be nice and peaceful. But the real motive is to cause as much destruction as possible. Portland loves to say that they're progressive, but progressive without law and order is just a fancy way of just saying good luck out there. But now you have Kristi Noem rolling in like a bouncer at a kid's party and telling the most important people in Portland, you people are lying. She does not believe in their reports. She doesn't trust their police. She's basically saying that Portland's leadership is either incompetent or straight up lying, straight up covering things up. They still won't admit that Antifa is a problem. They still won't cooperate with the federal agents, and they rather let their city rot than admit that they lost control. Portland wants to be the symbol of moral resistance, but they forgot that immigration law isn't optional. ICE doesn't care if your mayor doesn't like Trump. Federal law still applies. And while the mayor is busy trying to send a message, regular people are just stuck living in this type of war zone. So I want to talk about this segment here that was on CNN. This is a judge basically accusing the federal government of agitating this violence by just being present. Being present gets the people to react aggressively.
Yes, there's peaceful protests, but we're allowed to do that in this country.
Peaceful?
Yes, sir. There were protests in June that were not particularly peaceful. There was some violence then, but by September there were 10 or 15 people marching around with signs.
I don't believe in people attacking ICE agents.
That wasn't going on.
And when you talk about what's happening now, you got a TV? I mean, Turn it on. There is violence in Portland.
Can I tell you what's happening
and they're
now?
attacking federal.
It is ramping up the situation. It's creating the exact
Is that license
chaos.
to commit violence?
It's creating the chaos and danger that this administration wants to create, so then it has an excuse to suppress it.
And in
it's a
Portland,
provocation.
In Portland,
there was no violence at all. There was no destruction at all.
If there's no violence and there's no mayhem and there's nothing going on, why would people be so enraged at the idea of a handful of National Guardsmen standing around?
Because we don't want the military. We don't believe in the military controlling our cities. And
they're not going to control it. What if they're just standing there? What if they're just standing guard?
This is the fault of the federal government. They're causing the violence by just existing there. If they weren't there, the violence wouldn't happen. So here's a spin that they love to use. The feds are causing the violence, but that's like saying the bank caused the robbery because it had the guards guarding the safe. Federal officers standing in front of a building is an agitation. Throwing fireworks and trying to breach the fence, trying to block the traffic, that seems like agitation to me. If you're peaceful, no one's going to touch you. But some of these folks don't want peace. They want to fight, and Portland's leadership gives them cover. And that's the part that judge don't want to admit. The feds didn't like this match. The Portland rioters did. So this is what happens when politicians use cities as talking points. Portland's leadership wants to look like heroes on MSNBC, while the residents can't even walk outside without stepping over broken glass. They're fighting ICE to make a statement. They're fighting DHS to get applause, but they're not really fighting for their people. Kristi Noem, love or hate her, at least she's showing up and she's telling the Portland leadership they gotta do more. Portland leadership is just basically hiding behind press releases. And after every press conference, every defiant speech, every smug national headline, it seems like that's the real price they're trying to go after. Portland wants to be the symbol of resistance. Well, congratulations. Now they're the symbol of what happens when politics beat common sense. We're going to continue to follow this story and see what they're going to do. It seems like these protests are happening every single day. So we'll see what happens between them and ICE. But let me know what you guys think about this story in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video. And I'll see you guys in the next video.